defence, and just man-to-man defence. Depending on how far we get in the night, we'll advance to maybe some full court presses and half court presses. But to me, those things, particularly half court man-to-man presses, are relied upon man-to-man principles anyway, like what I call run and jump principles, full court man-to-man situation. So if we, I've always believed if you can really play good full court man-to-man defence and understand about jump switching and rotations and those sort of things in a full court man-to-man situation, it's pretty easy then to go and throw, you know, any sort of pressing one out there, because that really revolves around the man-to-man principles. Just hearing about where your teams are in regard to VC and Metro 1 and all that, like you guys appear to me to be about the same situation as Whittlesea. Whittlesea got a few more teams, I think, in VC this year than they've had in the past. So I'm tipping that you were dealing with the same sort of issues with your players as the people. When I say Whittlesea, I'm the coaching director at Whittlesea, so I have a bit of an idea going along watching the practice sessions there every Sunday of what I think we need to work on with our man-to-man defence at Whittlesea. And I'm guessing it's similar here, and it's probably similar everywhere, really. You know, like maybe the Knoxes and the other Whitings just have a few more bigger, a few more quicker kids. They've probably got the same issues. You know, so I'm going to sort of relate a little bit to what I'm seeing in Waverley. And the first thing that I see with man-to-man defence is just getting the players in a stance is the biggest issue. Okay, we can talk about, you know, how we defend on the ball, off the ball, all that sort of stuff. But if the players aren't in a stance to start off with, they're kind of playing behind the 8 ball. And I'm sort of surprised at Whittlesea how often I go and watch the practice sessions. The coaches kind of accept the players aren't in a stance. You know, like it's you know, they're talking, they're watching, they're doing a drill and watching practice, and as soon as the ball, you know, someone might be guarding a player on the ball, and as soon as that player passes the ball, everyone's up straight-legged and watching what's going on. It's kind of like it's just accepted. That's the way it is. It's kind of like I think we accept turnovers too much. You know, when kids are playing and someone throws the ball out of bounds, it's like, oh, well, come on, get the ball back, let's keep going, and another turnover. And, you know, come on, let's look after the ball a little bit, you know, another turnover. And it's just like one of those things where I think as you move up to a higher and higher level, coaches get more and more pissed off about turnovers, whereas in juniors we just seem to accept that's the way it is. So I think that in coaching, I think if you want to improve in your players' defence, I think you've got to be less tolerant of them not being in a defensive stance to start off with, and really focus on it. I know that there are times that I'm coaching in the NBL, that's something we really emphasise, is just the players being in a stance. It's probably the most common thing that we're saying to the players at that level is get in a stance. So with juniors, you know, it's a bigger problem, but it's something that I think that should be emphasised much more. Okay, so the first thing is get your players in a stance. We'll talk about what the right stance is. You know, there's all sorts of different philosophies on how you should stand, but I think everyone pretty well agrees you need to have your feet a bit wider than shoulder width apart and your knees bent. Okay, as a starting point. You know, whether you have 1 foot forward, you know, feet parallel, one hand up, one hand, you know, both hands down, all those sort of things are the things people will sort of have different views on. But you know, having your knees bent and a good wide base is the starting point. Okay, and I'll be surprised if when we go out and do the drills with the kids later, if they all get in a good, you know, they might be kind of a bit focused tonight. If they know we're doing defence, they might be out there trying, you know, like.
I told them offence.
Did you? But it's funny, when they know what's about to happen. You know, they know they're going to do it. They know they're going to do defensive drills. You'll probably find that they'll come out and they'll get in a stance because so they know what to do. It's whether we, you know, how much emphasis and how tolerant we are of them not doing it, because it's much easier to stand straight legged, isn't it, than to stand with your knees bent. Again, it gets back to, I think, to coaching and what you accept as a coach. So the first thing is getting the players into a stance. The other things that we're going to talk about tonight is the stance on the ball. Okay, so there's two scenarios that happen on defence. One is you guard a player with the ball. The other is obviously you guard players without the ball. Okay, there's not too many other scenarios that occur. Okay, when you're guarding a player with the ball, there's how you stand before they've dribbled it, how you stand while they're dribbling it, and how you stand after they've dribbled it. Okay, so those three things are important. And then there's off-ball defence. The stance and floor position that you're in, and some common movements and cuts that occur and how you go about defending those movements and cuts. All right, so there's forward lead, someone trying to lead out to receive the ball, how you're going to defend that. Post defence, player standing in a post-up situation, how you're going to defend that. And the situation where a player crosses the line between the ball and the basket, how you defend that, whether you open to the ball and force the defence to go behind you, the offence to go behind you, or whether you open to the ball, whether you head snap on those sort of cuts. And again, I'll talk about that a bit more. So there's a few different scenarios we're going to cover here. And again, a lot of it gets back to stance. Now, defending a player who has the ball, we're going to start off just talking about a quarter court situation. Okay, so it's not a full court pressure situation. The stance should vary a little bit depending on whether the player is in shooting range or outside shooting range. Okay, obviously if they're outside shooting range, they're not a triple threat, are they? They're only a double threat. Okay, so if they can't shoot it, if they're standing back at the centre line, they're outside their shooting range. For an under 12 player standing a foot outside or a metre outside the 3-point line, they're not really a triple threat. They're a passing and a dribbling threat. So your stance varies a little bit. I sort of go to this because coaches will have all these different philosophies on where the hands should be, but there's so many different scenarios that occur in a game that determine whether you've got two hands up or two hands down, or one hand up, one hand like it's. I don't think you can be black on white on how players should carry their hands. They just need to understand that they need to put the ball under some pressure. Okay, that if I'm guarding you and you haven't used your dribble yet, that if I get too close to you, it's going to be probably easier for you to get past me. If I play too far away from you and you're not under any pressure at all, it's going to be easier for you to make good passing decisions, probably good passes. So I need to find that happy medium between the distance where I can put you under some pressure and still contain you if you decide to start dribbling the ball. Okay, so, and for each player that's a little bit different. Like I was talking about Tommy Greer, who's out here, who I'm working out at Melbourne now. 6'6", super athlete. Like if I'm guarding him, I'm going to give him the ball and then stand back here because he's just going to be able to blow past me anytime he likes. He's guarding me, he's going to give me the ball and just crawl up into me because there's just no way I can get past him. And that's two extremes of athleticism, but in your age group you would have the same thing. You'd have some kids who are really quick, some kids who are really slow. They just need to be coached on understanding that the three things that they've got to defend, the pass, the dribble, the shot when they're in shooting range have to be taken into account. So a really tall kid can't get too close to a really quick kid because he's going to blow by him. And a really short kid on a big kid needs to use his shortness by crawling up and into the big kid, making it a bit harder for him. Okay, so again, there's no black and whites, but defending a player before they have dribbled the ball, the main thing is to put that player under some pressure with the hands. Okay, and that is, again, if he puts the ball up above his head, you can crawl up closer to him because he's got to bring the ball down before he can go anywhere. So in that situation, you might have one hand up and one hand, just stand up for a second, just pretend you put the ball up above your head. All right, you might come in a bit closer in here because now before he can go anywhere, he's got to bring that ball down. So if you've got a dig hand in here and he's got to bring the ball down, you might have a chance of being able to rip the ball out of there. Okay, if he's got the ball up above his head, you might use your other hand for pressuring any pass attempt. Okay, so you've got one hand down, there's a potential ripping out hand, another hand up to pressure the pass. You may also want to have two hands up. Again, I don't think there's a wrong way to have your hands as long as that guy's put under some pressure. If he's down and got your normal triple threat stance and hasn't used the ball, again, it might be one hand in here to dig the ball out and one hand up to intimidate the pass or the shot, or some coaches like to have two hands up for the passes. As long as he's under some pressure, I think is the thing, and the hands are being used to pressure the ball. All right. So that would be if they're in shooting range. Okay, and again, this is an important thing. Again, you might want to. Sorry, mate. You might want to coach. Think about this a little bit yourself. If I'm guarding a right-handed shooter, okay, and I'm deciding what to do with my hands. The better defenders, when they're guarding a right-handed shooter, will carry their left hand up in front of that player because they have to shoot the ball over that left hand. If you carry your right hand up, a good shooter, as you move up higher and higher levels, will be able to get that shot off before you pull that right hand up to block the shot. Whereas if you've got that left hand up, you can get that left hand up on the ball much quicker. In fact, most of the good shot blockers at higher and higher levels are always blocking shots with their left hand, not with their right hand. They've got to pull across their body with that right hand. So if you're guarding someone who, at your level, who is a particularly good, stand-up shooter, good advice for your defender might be to carry that left hand up in front of them rather than the right hand. Okay. All right. Now, if they start to dribble the ball, okay, what I believe is the best way to carry your hands in an on-ball dribbling situation is, if he starts to dribble this way, is to have this hand down, ready to try and pick off a crossover dribble, and this hand up to intimidate any passes, or be ready to get a deflection on any passes. If he was to change hands, say in a reverse dribble or a spin, then my hands would swing through. And again, I've always got that inside hand down, ready for a crossover dribble. Okay. Thanks. I think the way that a player moves their feet, again, this is probably the most important thing, is that low wide stance, and they go from being wide to wider, and then back to wide again, wide to wider, and back. And now again, that sounds, everyone's going, yeah, but players they don't do it, okay? Because I think as coaches we probably don't demand it enough, okay? Now there's different opinions, okay, on guarding a player with the ball in this situation here, about how your feet should be positioned. Okay, there's different opinions on whether you should be trying to force the ball handler to take that kind of route, or force the ball handler to take that kind of route. All right. Just give me a bit of an idea. Who thinks you should push it towards the baseline, towards the corner? Okay. Who thinks you should push it towards the middle? Okay. Who thinks you should just try and contain it? Okay. All right. So everyone's push it towards the corner. All right. What I found with my NBL team is every time we said push it towards the corner, the players, and I think probably the mistake I made was I really used to coach help a lot. So the players started, their stance started getting like this, without saying, here, go that way all you like. So instead of going to the corner, they're going straight at the rim, because they're saying, oh, the help will be there. Okay. The general philosophy of pushing the ball towards the corner, I think, or down this way, is a solid philosophy, because a player going this way has got far fewer passing options than a player coming across the middle. Obviously, a player, if you draw a straight line between the two directions he can go, a player coming to the middle has got all sorts of good passing, potential passing options, or as a player going to the baseline, usually there's only one other player, there might be one other player on their side of the floor, so that this player here might be the only potential passing option, or passing options along the baseline here that might be a bit dicey. So I think as a philosophy, pushing it towards the baseline is a good philosophy. Whether you say towards the baseline or towards the corner is, again, you can argue about that. So if you want to push it towards the baseline, and let's just say I'm guarding you on the wing now, you just stay sitting down, and the baseline's this way, I might say that if I stand like this, he's much more likely to go towards the baseline, but he's also much more likely to turn the corner on me. Okay? It might be that I could say if I guard him like this and really cover the middle, that he might be more likely to attack the baseline as well. Or you just say, right, just play bum the basket, and if he tries to go this way, you're really focused on making, that's always going to be your first instinct, to cover the middle, which might give him a half a step head start to the baseline. I don't think any of them are wrong, all right? As long as your players are in a stance and can move their feet, they're going to be able to follow your instruction as far as pushing it to the baseline. Do you understand what I mean there? So I don't think it matters if you're standing like this, standing like this, or standing like this, okay? You're going to be able to cover the middle quickly, and you're going to be able to do a reasonable job of covering the baseline if you can move your feet properly. Okay, and that gets back to how they move their feet and their stance at the start here. Okay? My own philosophy, not that I have a team anymore to coach, is I think that we, or I, used to coach too much help. Right? I really used to emphasise, we're pushing the ball this way, this is the person that is going to help, and these are the rotations from there, and I think that the players got too dependent upon help. Okay, whereas now, and the defensive coordinator of the Tigers now, I'm going to emphasise much more on the player who's guarding the ball, containing the ball, and not being reliant upon help. All right, we'll still talk about help situations and rotation and things like that, but much more of an emphasis on containing the play of the ball and making sure that no matter what he does and where he goes, when he pulls up to shoot it, that he's got to shoot it over a hand. Okay, that he's not going to get past me in a situation where now I'm now chasing him down and not able to put any pressure on his shot. So my philosophy will be play bum the basket in a stance. If he goes that way, you're cutting him off. If he goes that way, you're cutting him off. It's the push points as such. If he's here and he puts a ball on the deck, I want him going like that or like that. Okay? And I think if I can do that, then I'm not going to be reliant upon any help. And if the players are in a good stance, then and can move their feet properly, I think that's achievable at any level if you do the necessary work on the player's footwork. Okay, which is crucial. Again, same at the top here. Which way you're pushing it. Some coaches like to push everything onto the left hand. I think that's a pretty good philosophy. Under 12s and 14s, just push everything left. So no matter where they are, you're trying to push them that way. Because I know the Waverley kids can't dribble left hand. I know the Waverley kids can't shoot it very well left hand. So that's
Thanks for that tip too.
Well, in the NBL, most players can't shoot the thing left-handed very well. I've also worked with Tommy, and he's trying to shoot a left-handed layup, and he's a pretty good kid. He's he's probably 30% on his left hand compared to like 95% on his right hand, just on little layups around the basket. Okay, so it's not a poor philosophy to have, at any level. I think it's just pushing everything left. But the stance and how they move their hands, if they're going that way, I'd have the inside hand down, outside hand up. If they change direction on you, it's a matter of swinging their hands through, and we'll sort of do some drills on that when we get out there with the kids. And now when they pick the ball up, and they are no longer again a triple threat, now they're a passing or a shooting threat, well then you're going to crawl up into them and try and put them under as much pressure as possible, so that their passing options are a little bit less easy, I guess. So that would be the stuff we're going to cover on ball. So your stance before they dribble the ball, the major emphasis on using your hands to pressure and deflect passes and take away their options. When they're dribbling the ball, again, stance, moving your feet, sliding properly, inside hand down, outside hand up. When they pick up the ball, chesting up to them and putting them under pressure. It's always a good idea in that situation when they pick the ball up to have players practice calling out dead or stick or something that just alerts to the rest of the team that they don't have to worry about helping anymore now, because the dribbler can't go anywhere now, so they can really get up and make it harder for their player to receive the ball. Okay? Any questions on any of that stuff there? Okay. Now the scenarios that, our off-ball defence. Now, generally there's two types of playing, two ways of playing off the ball. One is a denial stance, and one is an open stance. Okay. So here's our keyway. Here's 5 players here. Let's just say the ball is here. So this player is playing bum to basket. These players who are guarding players one pass away from the ball, so that would be one pass, or that's one pass. I consider this to be 2 passes away from the ball. These players who are playing one pass away from the ball can either play in what I would call an open stance. So if you imagine that's their arms, okay, they're in an open stance, shoulders parallel to the passing lane, or they can play in a denial stance, like that. So now, ball's over here, I'm guarding him, my elbow or hand is in the passing lane trying to deny them the ball. Okay, so there's open stance or there's denial stance. Clearly, this one is better to help on dribble penetration. This one is better for making it difficult for the teams to pass the ball and move the ball around. Okay? The players who are playing 2 passes away from the ball would always be in an open stance. Okay, so there. And their floor positioning is dictated by their player's relationship to the ball. All right, and their player's relationship to the ball, their relationship to their player is what's called a defensive triangle. Is everyone familiar with the defensive triangle? Okay, so this guy's triangle is made up of this line. He's made up of this line. So that's his triangle there. This player here, that's his triangle there. This player here, he's sitting right on the passing lane, but he's still going to be on a little bit of a triangle so you can see the ball. And this player here that would be his triangle. So every time the ball moves or their player moves, their triangle needs to move a little bit. Okay? And clearly as they move, their player moves further away from the ball, their triangle gets bigger. Okay, so they can move further off their player as well. So they want to play closer to the ball than the player they're guarding so that they can help on penetration, but more so it's more difficult for their player to cut between them and the ball. And also, if the ball's passed to their player, it's a sloppy pass, they've got a chance of stepping in and picking off the pass. Okay, so players off the ball are in defensive triangles. Whether it's open stance or closed stance is up to you what you want to do as a coach. I've found with under 12s and 14s, I wouldn't be getting into a denial stance just yet unless I thought I had a really good group who really understood about being in an open stance. Probably under 16s are ready to get that introduced to them if they have good footwork and a good understanding of where they should be on the court, and obviously players above. In the NBL, I'd have my players able to do both. We might call, when we're in an open stance, our blue defence, and when we're in the denial stance, our red defence. Okay, because if you're playing against a team that has great penetrators, okay, well, you might want to be in a bit more of an open stance to help to make it harder for them to penetrate. If you're playing against a team that's more pass orientated in their offence, you might try and play more denial so that it's harder for them to get their passes and get the ball where they want to play it. So that's just a philosophical thing that you need to decide. But again, the open stance, shoulders are parallel to the passing lane. It's always good to teach the kids to have one hand facing towards the ball, and one hand facing towards their man. And in a denial stance, again, some coaches say to get a hand in the passing lane. Some coaches like to have an elbow in the passing lane when they're denying. It's also, denial stance is also taught some places like this. Okay, so the ball's coming this way, is to have this hand here in the denial stance. So that's really almost your open stance, but also putting this hand here. Now, the argument is that with this hand, you've got more time to get a hand on the pass with this one, and you're facing the ball. Okay, so you can be much more assertive of playing the ball in this sort of stance than you are in this stance, where you've got to look over your shoulder at the ball and sort of bat it down. It's like a more natural thing to come up with the ball this way than it is to come up with the ball this way. So again, I don't think either one is wrong. It's what you want. It's what you want to teach with your players.
With that, would you say, well, you'd work on the kids more so, wouldn't you? You'd have a kid who's switched on who can mostly play that backhand stance, where an open stance would be a kid who's not really.
Yeah, again, like with kids, 12s and 14s, I'd be just. This is where I'd be.
Simplest you can get it.
Open stance, open stance until they really understand about how far off their player they could be. And again, the general guide is about halfway. You know, some coaches say 2/3, some say 1/3. You know, it's about halfway, I reckon, most of the time. The hard thing is, and the thing that I think is almost impossible, is the peripheral vision. You know, like everyone says, you've got to look straight ahead, and then you can see. Say you've got the ball. Say I'm guarding you. You get in a position where you can see both without turning your head. So now, that's fine, but in the game, that ball's moving all the time, and they're moving all the time. So players have to turn their heads to maintain their position. So you then need to decide what you're going to lose for a second. You know, like if you're going like this the whole time, okay, that kind of gets old. So you're going to look more at your man, or you're going to look more at the ball. Okay, what I teach my players is it's not 50-50, it's 60-40. 60% on the ball, 40% on your man. If you're going to lose anything, lose your man for a second, but know where the ball is all the time. Okay, that triangle, stepping off the lane, should allow them to see their ball and their man. If they're going to lose something, lose their man, because a lot of times they lost their man. Just by looking at the player with the ball, you can tell whether he's thinking of passing it to your man. And say I've lost you for a second, you've cut over here, and I see you looking there to pass it, I can still make a play on that pass, even though I don't know where he is for a split second. Okay? Again, we'll do some drills for practicing that. So that's just general off-ball principles. In a stance, floor position, open stance or closed stance. Now, the things that you need to decide how you're going to defend the post player. All right. So again, here we go. Let's go down again. The ball's here. You've got a player posting up here, and they want to pass the ball into there. Okay. And how are you going to defend that? Okay. And again, some people like to front the post and keep it out of there. Some like to do what's called side front the post. Some just like to play behind the post. Probably the most common thing in the NBL is to side front it, and if they get it, just to play squared up to them and make them have to shoot it over a hand. That's probably the most common thing in the NBL. I always like to front the post. Is how I played it. The point of making it, the time when you have to make a decision, is if the offensive player is posting up on the line between the ball and the basket. That's where you have to make the decision, because if they're above the line, then it's pretty easy to side front them and make it hard for them to get the ball anyway. Okay, if they're below the line, again, it's pretty easy to side front them. Okay, because of the angle that the ball's coming on, you can still be in a good position to get the ball. But if they're on that line and now you're side fronting them, the angle is such that they can still catch it, and now, because you're on their side, they can drop step and go straight to the basket. Okay, so a good coaching point for your offense when you're trying to post your players up is to have them practice posting up on the line between the ball and the basket. Okay, because that's where it's hardest to side front from. Okay, so if the ball was over here, and there's the line between the ball and the basket. You try and get straight on that line. If the ball was here, again, same thing. It's always that line between the ball and the basket is where you have to make a choice about whether you're going to stand behind that guy or whether you're going to stand in front of that guy. Okay? Because it's really dangerous to side front them when they're standing on that line. Okay, again, because of the angle involved. Again, you see we get outside. Different philosophies are to side front it all the time, and when they get on that line between the ball and the basket, to jam them off it. You know, push them down the lane. If you're on the high side, to force them down lower off that line. If you're on the bottom side, to push them up higher off that line. Okay, so you're always fighting for that position and to move them away from that line between the ball and the basket. And again, my philosophy was to full front it. So the chair's here, okay, and I'm on the low side here. Okay, so I'm side fronting. The ball's out the front here. I'm side fronting. The ball gets moved to that position where it's my player's now in line with that ball and the basket. Okay, so I'd go from a side front, step around into a full front. Okay, where I lock my hand around the player, have one hand up. Because my view on that was that you know, it's a penetrating pass. You know, so you don't want anyone dribble penetrating at the basket. So why would you want someone pass penetrating at the basket? Okay, because it tends to collapse all the defenders around. So I always wanted to try and deny the pass in here. And it was, like I say, most teams in the NBL play behind, so it's an unusual thing for this passer to see as well. And quite often he'd try and throw it over this guy's head. And it either resulted in the ball going out of bounds because they never practice those passes, but it looks open, and they try it, and most players will throw it out of bounds, or this player here has a chance of going up and picking off the pass as well. Okay, so they need to wrap their hand around the player, which is technically a foul, but it's only a foul if they call it a foul, right? So, you know, they're in a wrestling match here, full fronting. Now, if the ball got passed from here over to there, they're back around, you know, side fronting. So that would be the movement of going from a side front to a full front. It's the same thing for the people who like to go behind, side front, behind, you know, push them out a little bit, and then side front here. The people who want to jam them down, they'll be side fronting, trying to push the player off that line in a little wrestling match that happens in the post in there. If you decide to full front, a good teaching point for going, because obviously the offensive player is trying to hold you, and there's a fight going on there for position. A good thing to teach is like a swim stroke. So sorry, just now, sorry, better if I just show it on play. He's here trying to post up and trying to stop me from getting around to full fronting. I'm trying to get around there. What a lot of players do is, as they try and get around, they get caught up under here and they can't get through. Okay, so good bit of coaching I picked up from the States was to use a swim stroke. Okay, so from here it's swimming this arm up over the top and ripping your arm through and bringing your hands through to follow that. Okay, so what I always just teach is a bit of a pop in the chest to start off with, like a bang, bang, and swing through round into that full front. Okay, if it went this way, again, stepping. So it's all based on how you use your feet. You know, the guys who do it well use their feet well. The guys who don't do it well are always running around trying to get, their feet are going all over the place, so they're not balanced. So it's harder for it. But the ones who are down in a stance, like Rob Rose, he couldn't. No one could stop him from getting around in front of them. All right, because he was just determined. He just popping, used great technique, and he just wanted that position more than they wanted it. And no matter who he was against, he would be able to get into a full front. Andrew Goodwin would be, can't get around. Like different mentality. All right, different kind of athletes, I guess, as well. But Rob used great technique, which is why he was able to get it done. Okay, so that would be how I would coach getting around into a full front. If the ball was passed, say I'm side fronting here, and the ball's out the top and now it's passed down to the corner, I wouldn't go around the full front way. So now I'm on the side here, the ball's at the top of the key, and the ball's thrown down to the corner. All right, so I wouldn't go around in that situation. I'd go behind, back around into a side front. Again, you only full front when they're on that line between the ball and the basket. And the same thing with up in the high post. I would side front, but in the high post, if they're on that line between the ball and the basket, I'd play behind in the high post because they're like 1 or 2 dribbles away from the basket. Whereas in the low post, I always like to full front. Okay? So post defense is something you need to decide on as a coach as well. The other thing that you need to decide on in off-ball defense is, give this pen a try. It's a whiteboard marker, it's all right. Is how you defend weak side to strong side cuts. Okay, so offensive player here, defensive player here, ball's over here, and now this player is going to cut like that. Okay, because as that player crosses the line between the ball and the basket, you have to make a decision on how you adjust your position. Because when let's just say the ball was passed from here to here, around to here, now the defender would probably be around about the middle of the court here, the split line. Okay? As this player tries to cut through the key, the defender always wants to stay ball side of him, right? And something like, and I always consider the key area here to be a denial area, so they're in a denial stance. So if they stay ball side of them in this denial stance as they're making this cut, sooner or later, as they get to this, they're going to end up here while their player's here, aren't they? Okay, if they stay in ball side, they stay on that side. So the time when they have to make a decision on how they adjust their position is as this player crosses the line between the ball and the basket. Okay, as they cross that line, that's when you have to decide on whether you're going to go from in a open to the ball situation or a head snapping situation, it's called, right? Or you can just let them cut between you and the ball, right? Which is not what I'd always be trying to make sure you don't let them do that. So on guard and you, just stand up again. Sorry. Let's just say this is the line between the ball and the basket. I'm denying you the ball. You're coming to that line. All right. Again, if I keep going like this, all of a sudden I'm further from the basket. He can just turn around, catch it, and lay it up right here. So as he approaches that line, I need to make sure that I'm either going to make him go behind me, that I either open to the ball and then back into my denial stance over this side, which keeps me closer to that line between the ball and the basket and him, or I have to head snap. So as he crosses that line here, I just turn my head and do that. Okay, so that maintains, and that occurs around about on that line. All right, there's no, it depends how quick he's cut and all that sort of stuff, but as a coach, you need to decide how you're going to defend that weak side to strong side cut. It's the same thing that you need to, it's the same that occurs if you're denying a player the ball here, and the guard's got the ball at the top here, now this guy goes hard back door, and they try this pass here, on that back door cut, so I'm here denying, and he goes hard back door, again, whether I open to the ball and try and play the pass, or whether I head snap and try and play the pass that way. Okay? And again, I don't know that there's a wrong or a right way. If you do them both great, you haven't got a problem.
What about for juniors? What would you say?
Well, I was about to say, I've always taught open to the ball. Yeah. Always. I'm all about, I believe you need to see the ball all the time. Anything that involves you turning your head on the ball on defence, I'm not a big fan of. The coaches who like to teach head snap like it because the feet just stay apart the whole time. And it's easy. If you turn the head quick, they say, well, you've only lost vision on the ball for a split second. And again, I'm not saying they're wrong. But the number of times that I've seen this kind of action here in the pass is attempted, and now the player opens the ball and picks it off, compared to the number of times that he goes and now the pass is attempted, and this head snapper, sort of tries to find the ball but doesn't get it. Mate, they might deflect it out of bounds still do okay. I just think opening to the ball is a more aggressive way of doing it. You've got a better chance of coming up with the ball. All right. The problem is you come out of a stance and open up, whereas in the head snap you're staying in the stance pretty well. There's less footwork involved with it. Okay, so it happens there, and it happens on weak side to strong side cuts. And I'll show you a drill for practicing that. The drill we'll do, I must explain to save me having explained it out there, is I put an offense and a defense, depending on how many players you got, is I have them pass the ball here, they have to jump to the ball and get in a defensive triangle, they pass the ball here, They now have to get to the split line, big defensive triangle. The offensive player now has to cut down to the low post, and the first stage of the drill, they're not allowed to cut over the line between the ball and the basket. So we're just practicing when the offense enters the key, that the defender now has to go from this. So let's just say that the player's cutting through this way, the ball's over here. As soon as that player enters the key, they now go into a denial stance. And as this player, where am I, keeps coming across here, we're going to meet him with an arm bar and deny them the ball. A good offensive player is going to try and cut between me and the ball and get across my front foot. So I'm going to we're practicing not letting them cut across our front foot, and we're going to try and jam them up towards the top of the key here. So meet him with an arm bar, kind of corral him out.
So you bump the cutter.
Yeah. Pop him. Yeah, please. Try and corral him out of there. All right. So in the first stage, the offensive player is trying to get it inside the key. The defender is trying to jam him out of there. In the second stage of the drill, you then tell this cutter that they've got to come through and they have to cross that line. All right. So they've got to get through. So now you're practicing your head snapping or opening to the ball. And then the third stage, you give them the choice of going wherever they want. Okay, and you can also make it that they can come here and now they've got to try and post up. So you're working on your post defence as well. Okay, trying to push them off that line up or down.
What's your preference when they're doing the cut from weak to strong? When you bump the cutter, do you want them to force them to go high side or?
Preferably in this one here.
Yeah.
Preferably jam them up high.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, a good offense. Well, the mistake that always happens with juniors is they let them get between them and the ball. Okay, so now they're playing behind them. The preference is to maintain your stance. You don't want to have to head snap or open to the ball, so if you can get them and corral them up higher, that's an easier scenario for you than having to head snap or open to the ball or head snap. So the preference would be to try and jam them up high if you can. Or if they're coming in to post up, jam them away from the line between the ball and the basket, either low or high doesn't really matter too much. Okay. So any questions on any of that? So they're all the scenarios that you have to prepare for in your team man-to-man defense. Okay, I haven't spoken about defending screens. Off-ball screens and on-ball screens, screen and rolls, those kind of things. There's like 12 different ways of defending an on-ball screen. Okay, I don't know them all, but I don't know that we're going to get into that too much tonight. Okay, same with defending off-ball screens. We'll see how we go. We can include that into our. I've got it down to do it in the shell drill. So we'll see how we go with that.
Just a quick one for you.
Yep.
Do you believe in full denial of the wing, or actually allowing the player to get the ball on the wing to therefore cut off that one side of the court?
I believe that whatever you want to do is the right thing to do, as long as you coach it properly. I don't know that there's a. I used to be all passionate and you've got to do this. And I'm not anymore because I see that it's more a matter of their stance and their floor position and then being able to follow what you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's really what satisfies you is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Okay, again, what matters to me now more than anything, and I don't know if in 5 years' time I'll feel the same way, is defend and dribble penetration. Doing a better job on the player with the ball. It's horses for courses kind of thing. Like in Townsville, I had John Reilly guarding perimeter players, all right, which is fine. For a period, I had Sam McKinnon guarding perimeter players. Sam McKinnon could just lock anybody up. You can't get past him. All right, doesn't matter what your rules. You can tell Sam to play with one hand behind his back, and you're just not going to get past him. John, anyone can get past him. All right, so it's your philosophy a little bit has to cater to the talent that you have. Like I'm in Melbourne now. I'm watching. We got Anstey. Probably get Sam McKinnon. Barlow, Grizzard. Tommy. They're all 6'6" and athletic. They're all. Like Barlow's about 6'8" and athletic. So it doesn't matter. You're not going to get past it. They can stand like this half the time, and they're still going to be able to cut their man off. So you can be a bit more conservative with more talent. You watch in Sydney, it's like they say, oh, what a great defensive team, but they've got Glenn Saville, Worthington, Kendall, like they're all long and athletic. So it's difficult to if they just are all in a stance and have an idea of where they're meant to be, they're going to be pretty hard to play against. All right, and that's where the level of your athletes needs to be taken into account when you have your philosophy. Like I would love to play denial defence all the time and great pressure on the ball, but in Townsville they never had the sort of athletes who could play that. So we had to come up, we had all sorts of funky rules in Adelaide, in Townsville, just because we had to sort of roll the dice a little bit to be competitive with the other teams. Like in Townsville, when we only had one helper on our defence. We called it the goaltender. So when the ball was on the wing, didn't matter where this weak side guy was, his defender was always there. We called him the goaltender. He was the help guy. All right, he's the only one that helped. We always pushed the ball to the corner. That was the philosophy. More often than not, they let him come this way. But if he came that way, it was always this guy was the one guy who was going to help. If they went this way, they were on their own. They weren't going to get any help, because if this guy in the NBL, if you help from here, he goes to that guy there, he just knocks down a three. All right, so the kind of anything coming in the middle just kills you in the NBL, because those guys just shoot the piss out of the 3-point shot. So we were pushing everything to the baseline. That was we called him the goaltender. He was and these guys here, what we called linebackers, where they had to rotate. Everything was always coming this way, and we just knew where people were meant to rotate to. If it got into the post, again, we were always fronting the post, but if it got in there, this guy had to get up and just take away the middle and make this guy turn that way, and the goaltender was always coming and double teaming from the baseline side. Because I believed if he could turn to the middle, again, he had all those passing options, where if we forced him to turn to the baseline and he spun, he's going into a double team.
That defence must have been fun against the Tigers, because that corner shot was...
Well, Tigers, Tigers are a whole new set of things, because their offence is so darn good. Your best chance against... See, the Tigers are different because they don't have that many... they do get into the post up a little bit at the end of the first option. But the Tigers, you've got to concentrate and take away all their quick hitters. They've got so many just wrinkles on first and thirds. They're just, what you call quick hitters. If you take away those quick hitters, you're taking away, 15 or 20 points a game from them. And then the next thing is then you've got to guard their talent, which is the next problem. But we actually had a pretty good record against Melbourne the time I was there, because we were able to take away their quick hitters. But they're a different scenario to most teams in the league. Okay, so to answer your question, I don't think that there is a wrong philosophy, because all the philosophies to be successful rely on players being in a stance and being able to move in a stance. If they can't do that, it doesn't matter what your philosophy is. It's not going to work. Okay, it's not going to be as effective as it could be. And the way to have the best defensive philosophy is to recruit 6'6", 6'7" guys who are all athletic.
No, if you know where they are,
they're all Melbourne, which is good.
6 foot.
Going to be the defensive coordinator, that sort of talent. Now, when we get into full court defence tonight, we're going to look at a thing called run and jump defence. Who's familiar with that term and has used it all? Okay, just one, couple. All right. I'll just give you a bit of a briefings on it, just so it might be a bit harder to hear out there. In a full court, that's a good court or not, but in a full court situation, so say offensive player, defensive player, another offensive player, another defensive player, like in an open stance, another one in an open stance, so another one up here, open stance, another one here. So let's just say that's a possible scenario that could occur as the team tries to advance the ball up the court. In run and jump defence, what you're looking to do is to put the ball handler under maximum pressure, so that their encouraged to dribble it, and to dribble it at a pace that they're probably not that comfortable with. Alright? When players one pass away from the ball can surprise the ball handler, they leave their player and perform what's called a jump switch. That is, so this player here is dribbling, got their head down, this player's one pass away, they leave their player, so I'm down here, jump it, alright, so they come up and they surprise the ball handler. The instinct of the ball handler a lot of time is to go and try and pass it over that player's head. Again, in your ideal situation, that's what's going to occur. That player's going to see you coming, put that ball up in the air to this player here. Alright, so the first aspect of run and jumps is pressure on the ball. The second aspect is the jump switch. That's this player here who comes up and surprises the ball handler. Okay, and I emphasise surprises the ball. If you can't surprise them, you should just stay back with your player. And the third aspect of it is this player who's the next in line is the player what we call the gap shooter. And that's the player who, when this ball's put up in the air, that they're coming through here, looking to steal that pass to that player. Again, that's your perfect scenario for run and jumps. Okay, it happens sometimes. Sometimes this player here might try and, instead of passing here, they might try and pass it all the way down there, so that's where the gap shooter needs to pick that off. This player might be too far away for this player to get to it, so the player who was on the ball at the start and they hear jump switch, they leave, getting ready to rotate to the next player, but they see the gap shooters come, so now instead of rotating to here, they may rotate down to the next player. Unless, of course, this one's rotated over, so then they rotate to this one. This one won't have rotated down, so now they run a big official back to almost to where they started from again. So for run and jumps to be successful, you need pressure on the ball, you need a good jump switch, you need good decisions made by the gap shooters, player who's going to shoot the gap that's left by this player going, and a good understanding of how to rotate and find the next available player. Alright, and it's a great full court pressure man-to-man defence, particularly in juniors, and it's a foundation of being able to press well. Okay, all those principles, pressure on the ball, being, surprising the players either with a double team or you can run double team as well instead of a jump switch. You can double team, but those principles of surprising the ball handler and the principle of shooting the gap are all relevant to any press that you want to run. Like a 2-2-1, 3-1-1, 1-2-2, 1-3-1, half court trap, anything. All those. So hopefully we'll get through that tonight. So what I want to do when we get out there is just go over some drills that I use for guarding the player who has the ball. All right. So just the first drill we're going to do is we're just going to have the players paired up. We're going to hand the ball to the offense, and when I yell out go, they're going to be down in a stance, just working the player with the ball. When I call out go the second time, they're now going to start to dribble in a zigzag, 2 or 3 dribbles, and we're going to work on sliding and carrying our feet. When I call out stop, the ball handler's going to pick the ball up, and we're going to get up and call out dead, and pressure the player. And when I call out stop the second time, we stop. Okay, so that's the first drill we do, is just working on putting pressure on the player with the ball. And then we're going to do another defensive footwork drill for guarding a player who's dribbling the ball. And then we'll get into doing that defending weak side to strong side cuts, the drill for that. And post defense, then we're going to go into 2-on-2 stuff, which I think for under 12s and 14s, that's the best way to introduce your on-ball and off-ball defense stuff, just 2-on-2. And then we'll go into the shell, which is 4-on-4, which is probably for good under 14s and under 16s and upwards. The shell drill is probably the best one for working on your full court, your quarter-court man-to-man defensive principles, on-ball and off-ball. And then we'll look at run and jumps, and it'll be a miracle if we get through it all.
Yeah, we've got the players about 9:30, mate, so we might want to make our way. Okay.